First of all, thank you, and also the professor, thank you for hosting here at the University of Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi is also a right place to start talking about the market, which will start here today. It will maybe become even historic day in the fact that we talk about the real start of a market that may become global. A market like Marat already introduced, market of emissions, emission trading, carbon trading, renewable trading, guarantees of origin, RECs, you name it. That is something that is all still in the air or not existing or in confusion and so on and so forth. And what we are really aiming for is to make this happen somewhere at some place on Earth, and we selected Abu Dhabi for that. Because this is the right place. Here you have a good ambiance. Not only the university, the whole city, also the United Arab Emirates, they want to change the world. They have the power, they have the vision, they are open to communicate, and they also have the power and also the imagination to make things work. So that's a little bit why we're here today. Actually, the other thing, that is maybe a very sad story, or a very special story. The most important person for today is Jan Heidsman. Jan is, together with Jan, I founded this ZETA, the Zero Emissions Traders Alliance. And Jan is supposed to talk about how we are going to do. I'm more the old guy in the background that have the general story like, why is this important? But of course, today we will discuss like, how are we kickstarting a market for carbon trading, emissions, and green. Not only molecules like hydrogen or e-fuels or synthetic gases and fuels, but also power, electricity. So I will try a little bit to take a little bit of what Jan is supposed to tell. The other, fortunately, by the way, is that while Jan Heidsman, who is the expert, is not here, we have two other guys that are also very instrumental. Cornelius and Mata, you already introduced a little bit. Cornelius is the CEO of Dii Desert Energy. And I was asked before by one of you, what does Dii stand for? Well, Dii originally stands for Desert Tech Industrial Initiative. This was an initiative we started now 15 years ago in Germany with a couple of companies to help the region, North Africa, Middle East, with the energy transition, with renewable energy. You can imagine that 15 years ago, there were hardly any renewables in the region. The region is 14 million square kilometers large. It's 10% of the land surface on Earth is this region, the MENA region, and that GCC is a part of it. But in those days, although there is a lot of sunshine, we enjoy this every day, and there's also in many places a lot of wind, in some places even hydropower. 15 years ago, there was almost no renewable energy production. The region was almost 100% fossil energy based. And that is all fine, and it got a lot of prosperity, and it is a relatively good low cost, and so on and so forth. That's okay. But as you all know, the effect is emissions, greenhouse gases, CO2, methane, other greenhouse gases. And you all know these figures of 57 billion ton emissions each year into the atmosphere. And only 50% of these emissions are being absorbed by nature, by the fauna, and so on. And so we all know you cannot push every year loads of greenhouse gases into a thin layer of atmosphere and then believe that you can do this for the next generations and so on. So we all are smart enough to understand that it will not be possible, or it will kill us. And that's why we worked with Dii, with Cornelius, to help the region, and that became a tremendous success because in the first years, if we started in 2009, everyone here was laughing at us. But solar power, it was solar thermal, photovoltaic. In those days, the costs were 25 cents, dollar cents per kilowatt hour in 2009. And wind, there is no wind here. And there is wind in Egypt, in Morocco. So people will say, no, you're nice guys, but we don't believe in it. Not really. But today, this region is the world champion. The largest projects, the lowest cost, like up to 1 cent per kilowatt hour. So from 25 to 1 cent. So that makes a hell of a difference because in 29, it was a hopeless case. You have very high cost. Solar is only during the day. So people are laughing, in the evening we have no power, and in the night. Wind is also volatile, so, and there was no industry, so hopeless. But today, this region has all the power and possibilities, and they also understand, and they have also the capital to make this happen, and they are making this happen. And we will see this in COP28. The UAE is hosting the COP28, and we will see that UAE will push for this energy transition for renewables. So this is on the renewable side. Then, of course, the other source of energy that we come from, this is fossil, was 100% 15 years ago. It will lose, of course, market share, so to say. This does not mean that we have to decarbonize, that it will disappear. We do not need to decarbonize the energy industry. We only need to prevent emissions into the atmosphere. E-fuels, most of the e-fuels of the future will contain carbon, by the way. And it is the carbon that we still use on the fossil side, so the fossil fuels of the past, oil, gas, coal, whatever. The carbon that will be used to produce energy should be kept in the ground or brought back into the ground, carbon capturing, or reuse. And that's also a new industry, new ideas. There's a lot of innovation on the reuse of carbon. Carbon has a value. So these are very important points. So we have now talked about two sources. One is the renewables, solar, wind, hydro maybe. The other one is fossil. Fossil has also perspectives, but very important that whoever uses fossil fuels for energy takes care that there will be no emissions. And that is all possible. And the third one is nuclear. Also, and that's a nice thing in Abu Dhabi, because Abu Dhabi has nuclear plants. You can see that not far from here in the west, the north, the west. Nuclear, it's working, it is fine. There's nothing against nuclear. As long as this nuclear is not producing greenhouse gases, it's top. And if it's safe and you take care of the nuclear waste to deposit this, there's nothing against nuclear. It's only a question then about the economics and safety and things like that. So, but that's not up to us. So what we see is that if we talk about energy systems, the technology, we have three big groups or categories of sourcing. 1, renewables, 2, fossil, 3, nuclear. And all three can be used, provided no one leaves emissions, greenhouse gases in the air. It should be cost effective, and it should be secure, and it should deliver local benefits. So the economies here should have a benefit from using renewables, fossils, and nuclear, whatever. So that's actually what DII is doing. Cornelis will talk more about that. And maybe also Timor of Enoa in Saudi Arabia. The other thing is about the market. And Tamar already talked about it. we all know that emissions is a global issue. You cannot say one country does nothing and the other does everything. That makes no sense. Yeah? It is one atmosphere. We all live in the same atmosphere around our globe. So we all have to work on lowering the emissions to bring it to a level that can be sustainable, like can be absorbed by nature, about 50% less of gases, greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. But we have the systems now we talk about, like in this region and worldwide. You see all these energy transitions, but there is not yet a global market system, a global market structure, a global market platform. Actually amazing. Yeah, we talk about one of the major challenges of society these days, that is climate and emissions, and there is still no system to make this, to give this a value, to make the value of emissions of green visible through trading, through buy and sell. With the whole society, everyone knows what the car costs, everyone knows what the piece of bread costs, it's supply and demand, and no one knows on Earth what is the cost or the penalty maybe of emitting greenhouse gases. There are a lot of countries you can emit like hell, no problem, no one cares. And we all know that we go to hell with this. Yeah? So this is why we came with the idea of ZETA. And it is a pity that Jan is not here. So I raised this idea with Jan Heitzman. I founded 25 years ago, I think you remember EFET, the European Federation of Energy Traders. That was in 1999 when the European Commission said, well, we have to open up the energy markets, power and gas. And it is a little bit déjà vu. In those days, there was no market. There was no market platform, no exchanges, no practical instruments. And then we said with a couple of companies, let's start bundling the traders, or the people, the companies that want to do transactions, like selling and buying electricity, gas, coal, whatever, in Europe. That is EFET, 25 years ago. And EFET introduced standards, standard contracts, and that's actually where Jan Heitzman, I hired Jan in those days to, because he's a lawyer, you need lawyers, you always need good lawyers in life, and he's an outstanding lawyer, and he drafted these contracts, the standard contracts of EFET, and this will maybe something similar now today. So what we have the systems, we have an awareness everywhere. No one here, I'm quite sure that no one today will deny the climate issue. 5 years ago, there was always someone said, oh, I don't believe in this, but that's done. But nobody, even on the other side, neither myself, know how really to do this through a market. This is something we have to build up together. So we are at a pioneering phase. And I can imagine that you need standardization, certification, accreditation, knowledge, also science. You need a lot of activities, bundle this to create a market, starting here in Abu Dhabi, UAE, the Gulf states, together, for instance, with Enova, with Neom, and other friends, MENA, and then globally. And what it is, more or less, and I don't know, Max, if you have this famous picture, then I can show, but I always like to see it, make the visualization for myself. And, but sometimes people are getting confused when I show them these pictures. Yeah, this one. This more or less about what I talked about. Life is very simple, in fact, because the energy sources that we talk about in energy systems and energy markets on Earth is basically about fossil. It's still 80% of the world's energy supply is fossil. It's 170,000 terawatt hours. It's about renewable, whatever it is, solar, wind, hydro, biomass, waves, and so on. And it is about nuclear. You still have the nuclear fission and maybe in the future nuclear fusion. There's not more than this. And then this produces physical energy, and it is electricity, or these are energy molecules, chemical molecules like oil, methane, methanol, and so on. These are only chemical molecules that transfer the energy produced here to consumers through infrastructure, through electrical grids, through pipelines, through boats, ships, trucks, whatever. And these markets, that's what EFET did. EFET, the European Federation of Energy Traders, and there are a lot of other trade associations in the world. They take care of the market of these physical energy carriers. Nothing special. Everyone can do this today. And then it finds its way to the consumer. But in the last 15 years ago, the phenomenon of green power and carbon emissions was not noted that much. It was, but now, today, this is since the Paris Treaty and since Al Gore in 26 and some other effect, we are talking about carbon abatement, carbon credits. Sometimes it's about carbon taxation, about carbon penalties, cap and trade, whatever systems. This is new, emerging, like in Europe, but also step by step here in the region. And it is about renewables. In fact, why is renewables so important? Because renewables, we know that renewables are sustainable. These two are not really sustainable. Yeah, maybe a little bit, but renewable, the sunshine will be always there. And if there's no sun anymore, there's no life on Earth anyway. So, and related energy like wind is all solar related. It's sustainable. So for that reason, sustainable means also energy security. And each country on Earth has this energy. It's different from oil or a gas source here and there or a coal mine. Renewables, all countries on Earth have some solar, some wind, some hydro, something. And this also deserves extra push. It is a quality that deserves a premium. So what we try to do to bring this in the market in a virtual way through certificates. It's virtual, you cannot eat a certificate. And then to trade these virtual elements in a marketplace, worldwide. Not only in the UAE or in GCC or in Europe, but it is a global subject. And then the two elements come together in the products. So the products are physical. You have a product like electricity from the plug here, there, or you buy natural gas or gas, CO2 or hydrogen, or methanol, whatever. And then you want to know, the customer wants to know, is there any carbon emission related with these products? Yeah, I'm here stumbling over this leg here. But this is a little bit the story, and I hope that it confuses a little bit, because that makes better discussion. Yeah, I would say this is more or less, from my side, and it covers also a little bit of what Jan was supposed to or wanted to talk about. Jan will, of course, talk about how are we going to set up these boxes here. The trade of the physical and the trade of the virtual elements in the UAE. How does it look like carbon exchanges and green energy, guarantees of origin, exchanges. And we can talk with Timur and with Cornelius about what kind of ideas we can implement locally with the stakeholders together. And that's actually what the aim is of ZETA, is to make this work. So ZETA is not an exchange. ZETA will not, so to say, not have any big organization or assets or a trade platform itself. but it bundles all of you, all the stakeholders, to make this work. Samar, I think this is supposed to be more or less a combination of Jan and myself. And then I would suggest that we ask Cornelius to talk the interesting story of Dii Desert Energy. And that will really be a very exciting story. And then we also see why Dii Desert Energy and ZETA is such a strong combination. Who may I give the word?